Hello everyone, this is Dave from Dave's Recent Things. July is upon us right now, and you know what that means. Christmas in July. So today, 15 Christmas in July, DIYs and wreaths. Why don't I just get started and I'll show you what I made. I found these plastic large candy canes at my local Dollar Tree, and I picked up 4 of them, along with this 2.5-inch wired ribbon and some 1.5-inch wired ribbon from my stash, these Christmas floral picks, some pipe cleaners in white, some cable ties as well, this beautiful ornament that I found and I totally wanted to use it, along with my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. I'm first going to start with those large candy canes and lay them out. So I'm just starting with 2 of them at a time, and then I'm just going to add a couple of cable ties right in the center area just to really hold them together and make sure they don't go anywhere, and then cutting off the excess. And then I'm going to attach my third one here, again using 2 cable ties, and around the same place I placed the other ones, place that into position, cut off the excess, and add my 4th one on there. So I'm just laying them out a little bit off skewer, a little bit off center, and then once that's all done and tied in place, I cut off the excess cable ties. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another one. I'm not going to fully close it, just right at the top of the cable ties. Then I'm going to loop another one, and this is what I'm going to use to hang this door hanger on. So we can use that cable tie just to hang on a hook or your wreath door hanger. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my ribbon at 12 inches. So I'm just going to take my scissors, come up at the 12-inch mark and give it a good cut. And I'm also going to cut the ribbon at 24 inches as well. So that's, again, the 8 inches, 24 inches, and then, it's 12 inches and 24 inches. And here's the layout of my ribbon bow cuts. So for ribbon number 1, I'm doing 5 pieces at 12 inches. Then I'm going to be doing 4 pieces at 8 inches. Ribbon number 2, which is the striped, is 3 pieces at 12. And I'm also going to be cutting both of those ribbons at 24 inches for the tails. And to create our little bow, I'm just going to fold our ribbons in half, staple them, and that creates a little teardrop shape. And I'm going to do that for the rest of my ribbons. All sizes, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Once that's all done, I'm going to take one, add a little bit of hot glue where we just stapled, and then I'm going to place another little loop right on top of that, right in the hot glue. And I'm going to keep doing that, creating a little star shape with those longer ribbons. And I'm going to use 5 of them, and then I'm going to come in the center and use the 8-inch ribbons, and I'm going to glue those in place as well. Once that's all done, I'm going to take those 3 striped ribbons, and then I'm just going to glue them right to the back, adding those loops in there as well. Once that's all glued down, I'm going to take those tail pieces, find my center, and then I'm going to turn it inside out, add a cable tie right to the center, cut off the excess once I pull it nice and tight, and then I'm going to place a whole bunch of hot glue right on the back side of our bow and place our tails right in there. And then I'm just going to fluff it up just a little bit to make sure the tails are nice and full, and then I'm just going to add some more hot glue with a pipe cleaner on the back, and this is how we're going to attach our bow to those beautiful candy canes we just created. Of course, now's time to fluff up our bow. To all the fluffers out there, that's dedicated to you. And then I'm just going to position my bow, figure out where I want it, use those pipe cleaner stems to attach it around the back, and then I'm just going to use a little bit of hot glue after I finish fluffing it all up, making sure it's in the position where I want it, such that that bow doesn't go anywhere and it's nice and secured. Once that's all dry, it's time to add on that ornament. I love this ornament. I don't know why. It's very simple. It screams Christmas, let's put it that way. I'm going to glue that down, and then I'm going to take apart those Christmas stems. And once I've taken them apart, I'm just going to add some hot glue right at the bottom of the stems, and then I'm just going to place them all around. that beautiful bow we just placed right in the middle of our candy canes. Adding that greenery just adds a little touch of Christmas, I think, and then these white berries just finish the whole thing off, in my opinion anyways. And here is our final candy cane door hanger. I am in love with these large candy canes, and of course, I told you before, I love this Christmas bulb. Our huge bow right in the center with a couple of different patterns. It just screams red, white, and green for Christmas. Here it is on my studio door in all of its glory, just shining and sparkling with all that glitter and all of that beautiful candy cane stripes. I'm going to be using a 14-inch round wire wreath frame, this 2.5-inch wired burlap ribbon, an abundance of this greenery that I found at my local dollar store, and a slew of silver glittery Christmas ornaments, along with our little friend here, some electrical tape that I had in my stash laying around, and my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. First thing I'm going to do is cut my wire frame into a crescent shape. So I am cutting on the outside of those cross bars. So I'm just taking my wire cutters and I'm just snipping those 4 wires right on the outside of that cross wire coming down. And I'm going to do both sides. So I'm taking one full section out of the wire wreath frame. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut a little piece of electrical tape and I'm going to put together the 2 outside wires and wrap that electrical tape around a little bit. Now it's important to note too to cover the very end because that is sharp, and then I'm just going to gather the rest of the wires together and just continuing wrapping that around. I'm going to take another piece of electrical tape for the other side and just repeat the same process. So now once that's all done, we have our crescent moon shape all ready to go. Then I'm just going to take that burlap, add some hot glue at the very end, attach that right at the very end of our crescent moon shape, and then all I'm going to do is wrap till my heart's content all the way around my wire wreath frame, totally covering it. And at the very end, I'm just going to take some more hot glue, wrap it around the end, cut off the excess once I get that all glued down, and that's just going to finish off our base wreath. And I'm just making some final adjustments, and now that base wreath is all ready to decorate. I'm just using a little silver aluminum tray to gather all of my greenery. I'm taking it all apart. You can use the full floral pick if you wish. I wanted to use just the little pieces just so I have a little bit more control of where they're going to go. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start at the very end of our crescent moon, and I'm just going to place a couple of that pieces of greenery, and then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start gluing till my heart's content, just following that shape of our crescent moon, adding those floral greeneries on there just with that hot glue gun. And I'm going to make sure I get the sides as well, such that all of that burlap is covered. And I'm going to put a little bit of pieces every now and then. Now at the center point, I do change direction. So in one direction, it's going one way, I hit the center, and then I go a different direction in the other way as well. Once I'm kind of almost done, I just start filling in a little bit more because, I mean, there's still some of that burlap kind of poking through. So I'm just going to start adding those in there. And then once it's all covered, I'm going to go back in with my hot glue gun and those greenery picks and just fill in all of the sections that I think need a little bit more coverage. And then here we go, we have our base wreath all ready, and our next step is my absolute favorite step. But first, before I start that, I'm actually going to attach a pipe cleaner. I'm going to wrap it around and create a little loop. This is going to be the hanger for our frame. So I'm just going to add a little ribbon as well, just to kind of cover up most of our little hook, if you will, or a little loop for our hanging of our wreath. And there's our little loop all ready to hang the wreath. Now here is my favorite part, my absolute favorite part. I am now gluing down all my little embellishments. So you can see here I have some silver glittery, some pure silver, ornaments, and then here I'm just gluing down some silver leaf picks that these come from the Dollar Tree as well. And then I'm going to start placing everything on there. I'm going to start with my little friend here, our little reindeer in silver glitter. I'm going to hold that in place for a little bit, and then once that's all secure, I'm going to start placing those Christmas bulbs on there. The whole idea of this is kind of doing a monochromatic with silver, so I'm using different textures, different styles, different shapes as well. You can see here I'm putting a different shape on there, and I'm aiming to do a little cluster of silver right on the center of our crescent moon shape. So I'm just hot gluing everything down in place using that hot glue gun, and then here is almost finished results of my little cluster. I was just so happy with all of these little bulbs going everywhere. I decided to add just a little bit more. I got some more of these picks, and they have just little small styrofoam silvery glittery bulbs, so I'm going to add those on there just for some finishing touches. And once everything's dry, we have our final wreath all ready to hang and showcase for our Christmas decor. I just love all of that greenery on there, and it really pops against that silver, and of course our Christmas bulbs little cluster on the left with our little friend, the silvery glittery beautiful reindeer, just showcasing this gorgeous Christmas crescent. The star of the show today is the candy cane wire wreath frame. I'm going to also be using 2.5-inch burlap wired ribbon, along with this pack of 100 Christmas bulbs that I found at Michael's, and my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue down the wire ribbon just right at the bottom end of the candy cane, and then I am just going to wrap it around the entire frame. I'm not being too careful with it, I'm not being too precise, it's all going to be hidden, but I am just wrapping it all the way around. I'm using 2 full rolls for this, and when I get right to the end, I cut off the excess, and then I just glue it right down into place. And once that's all nice and dry, we have our base ready for our Christmas ornament candy cane wreath. Look at this, so far, so good. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking off those little hooks right at the very end. This is optional, you don't have to do that. I found taking them off with a pair of pliers so much easier rather than using my hands. I ended up having 2 different sizes, so I sorted those out as well. And now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start right at the bottom of that candy cane wreath, and I'm just going to start gluing on those Christmas ornaments. I'm starting off with the smaller ones just right at the bottom at first. I'm almost gluing them together, so I'm gluing them at the bottom onto that ribbon, and I'm gluing them on the sides as well. I'm using a lot of the larger ones on the outside along with some small ones, but predominantly the larger ones I'm using on the outside. And of course I outlined it first with my ornaments, then I'm going to come on the inside and fill with my ornaments as well. So that's what I'm just doing right now, is I'm just kind of taking various Christmas bulbs, placing them down, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add those finishing touches on there just to cover up the open areas, just filling it in with those beautiful Christmas bulbs. And I loved working with these bulbs, they were great. These are plastic, so they're not gonna break. And of course, our final result is this beautiful glittery green, silver, red, beautiful wreath. Now to hang this, I'm actually gonna take a pipe cleaner. I'm just gonna figure out what size I want, twist it around a couple of times, cut off the excess, and then all I'm going to do is add some glue right at the back side of our wreath frame, add that little hoop that we just created, put some more glue down, and then I just cut a little piece of excess ribbon, add some glue just right around the edges just to cover up all that hot glue, so it just kind of finishes off a little bit. And this is how we can hang our wreath. Here is the final result of this glittery green, gold, silver, and red Christmas ornament wreath. Here it is hanging on my door in all of its glory. Again, we are using the candy cane wreath frame from the Dollar Tree. This is just some yarn. It's chunky yarn I purchased from Michael's in white. I have some 1.5 and 2.5 inch wired ribbon laying around. This comes from my stash, along with this red and white twine rope that I'm going to be using, this cute little plush elf that I found at the Dollar Tree, some Christmas ornaments that I had left over, pipe cleaners, and of course I'm going to be using my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. And to start off, I'm going to wrap my yarn, and what I'm going to do in the beginning is just hot glue it right to the edge of that curve at the end of the candy cane wreath frame. The reason why I'm doing this is I want to hide the black frame a little bit, so I'm using my hot glue gun just to kind of get that into position. Once that's in position, then I'm just going to start wrapping to my heart's content, and this does go rather quickly once you get into the rhythm of it. Once I finish a section, I come to the crossbar, I do add some hot glue, and then I put the yarn right on that hot glue just to make sure everything stays in place. And then, guess what? Wrap, 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 wrap to my heart's content, and I'm going to be gluing it down at every single cross intersection. Once that's all done, I'm going to do the exact same thing on the very end that we did right at the very beginning with my hot glue gun, and just attaching it all on there. Once I'm done, I'm going to throw more hot glue on the back side, push it down with my little spatula there, cut off the excess, and add a little bit of hot glue right to the end so it doesn't fray too much. This yarn, I have to say, is so soft. I just loved it. I couldn't stop rubbing it. It was so soft. And just for a little color on there, I'm going to take the red and white twine, and I'm just going to wrap it around every so often, maybe every half an inch, and just wrap it around the entire candy cane wreath frame. And once I get right to the end, I'm going to cut the excess off, add a little bit of hot glue down, and then I'm just going to press it down using my little tool, and our base wreath is all ready to go. I'm going to be making a large bow. For this, I'm going to use a ruler, some 2.5 inch and 1.5 inch ribbon, and of course I'm also going to be using a pipe cleaner, which is full length, and some cut pipe cleaners just cut right in half. So for my first section, I'm going to mark off the 14-inch mark, gather it together, and then I'm going to measure out that 14 inches again. So my first 14 inches is my tail, and this is going to be my loop. So you can see there I have my loop there, and then I'm going to measure out another 14 inches, gather that all together. That's going to create our second loop, and again we're going to measure out another 14 inches, and gather that together, creating our third loop, and our final one is the tail. So now I'm just going to cut that, and to keep that all together, I'm just going to use one of those half pipe cleaners that I cut right in half, and then I'm just going to twist it right around the center, and to finish off that ribbon, we're just going to dovetail both of the ends of those dovetails, folding it in half, cutting on an angle, and that creates a little finishing touch, and our first segment is all done for our bow. For our second segment, this time I'm going to measure out 12 inches for the tail, and I'm also going to measure out 12 inches for my loops. Now, if you have a good side and a bad side, so that's a finished side or an unfinished side to your ribbon, like I'm showing you here, you want to twist right at that center point where you're gathering it, such that the good side is always facing up. So here I am doing my fifth and final loop at the 12-inch mark, and then I'm going to cut at 12 inches. That's going to be my tail, and put it together with a pipe cleaner, and finishing touches as always, we're going to cut on an angle with some dovetails just to create a little finishing touch, and segment number 2 is done. Moving on to the third one, I'm going to keep the 12-inch tail, but this time I'm going to do 10-inch loops. So again, I'm twisting right at the center as I gather it to make sure that that good side or finished side stays up, so it's facing up. And for this one, the same as the previous segment, I'm going to be doing 5 loops and 2 tails, and here we are just finishing it off with a cut at the 12-inch mark, adding that pipe cleaner on there, twisting it together, making sure it's nice and secure, And then of course our finishing touches, which is those beautiful dovetails. I am addicted to dovetails. I love them. I got to learn how to finish off my ribbons a little bit more. I have a little more variety. So the final segment, I'm doing 12-inch tail and 8-inch loops. So I'm going to be doing the 8-inch mark, bringing it together. And for this one, I'm only doing the 3 loops for this segment, and then I'm going to cut the tail at the 12 inches. And then of course I'm going to grab that pipe cleaner, twist it right in the center, and guess what? You know what's coming. We're going to dovetail. I dovetailed so many ribbons today. Our final piece, I'm going to measure at 5 inches, and then I'm just going to add a little hot glue on one end, and then I'm going to fold it over into itself, creating just like a little tube using that 5-inch piece. Now all our segments are done. I have them here laid out, and to put it all together, all I'm going to do is attach them using those pipe cleaner stems. So we're just going to wrap it around, cut off the excess, and I'm going to do that for each segment. So I've laid out on my table all of my segments according to size, largest to smallest, so I can just grab the next one, attach it on there using the same method, wrapping that pipe cleaner around, twisting it in the back a couple of times, and then you can cut off the excess of these ones. Once all my segments are down, I'm going to use that little tube that we created along with a full-size pipe cleaner, position that little tube in the middle, then I'm going to feed those pipe cleaners just around the back, and then I'm going to twist them together. Now don't cut these stems. This is how we're going to attach our bow to our wreath. Of course, I'm going to fluff up just a little bit, and here we go is our big, beautiful bow ready for our wreath. First thing I'm going to do before I attach my bow is create a little hanger, and this is a full-size pipe cleaner that I'm just feeding through, and then I'm just going to twist that around a couple of times, cut off the excess, and then we have our little hanger all ready for our wreath so we can hang our wreath. And yes, it is upside down. It's done that way on purpose. You'll see where I'm going with this. To attach our bow, we do the exact same thing. So we feed those 2 pipe cleaner stems right through where we just created the hanger. I'm going to make sure it's positioned the way I want it, and then I'm just going to twist a couple of times, cut off the excess. This is optional. I always like to add a little bit of hot glue on my pipe cleaners just to make sure they're nice and secure. We're going to let that dry for a bit, and then of course we're going to add our finishing touches. I'm going to just position our little plush friend here, and then I'm going to take some red pipe cleaners along with those Christmas bulbs, and then I'm just going to feed 1 pipe cleaner through the end of the hook, twist it around a couple of times, and I'm going to do that for all 3 of those Christmas bulbs. Then I'm just going to glue them at the very tail end of that candy cane wreath frame. All 3 of them I'm going to glue down, and I'm just going to make sure that those pipe cleaners are gathered together right where the hand is. I'm going to glue that hand down, then glue those pipe cleaners right in place as well. And now it's time to glue our little friend on there so they don't go anywhere. We don't want them falling off. Then we're going to cut off those excess pipe cleaners, and our little friend is holding some Christmas balloons. Here is our final wreath, or I should say our final touches all completed. Here is the final result with that huge, beautiful red and white bow. I just love it. Our little friend hanging out, holding on to some Christmas balloons, just finishing off this beautiful wreath. And I have to say, this wreath makes me smile. Every once in a while, there is a wreath that I do, and I just have a huge smile on my face. This is definitely one of those wreaths. Our final one here is our candy cane wreath frame. I'm using 21-inch Deco mesh and 2.5-inch wired ribbon, a couple of different patterns, some white pipe cleaners. I have some greenery here and some red berries from the Dollar Tree, and of course my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. I'm going to start off with my Deco mesh, and I'm just going to gather it right at the end there. So all I'm doing is I'm just walking my fingers up, creating a little gather point. Once that's all gathered in, I'm using a half pipe cleaner and just twisting around at that point. I'm not going to cut the pipe cleaner, I'm just going to leave it be, but I am going to cut the excess of that Deco mesh off. And then to create our little bundles, I'm going to start at the 5-inch mark and go to the 15-inch mark, so that's 10 inches. So we're doing the bubble method today, and I'm going to be measuring out at 10 inches. So when we get that 10 inches, I'm going to add that pipe cleaner on there. You can see I'm just showing you how the bubble is going to be formed once it hits our wreath, and then I move on to my next section. So I'm not cutting anything at this point. I'm measuring out 10 inches, attaching my pipe cleaner, twisting it around a couple of times, and I'm making sure those stems face up. So there is a reason for this. It's the way we attach it to the wreath frame. So I want to make sure that all of my stems are facing the same way. This is an 18-foot roll that I'm using here. And again, it is 21-inch Deco mesh, and I'm doing it at 10 inches. Once I finish the entire roll, I come to the very end and cut off that excess the exact same way we did right at the front, just getting rid of that excess. When you're done, you should have something that looks like this. It looks like a big chain link, and now we are ready to attach it to our wreath frame. For the beginning, I am going to attach, and I'm going to make sure that those pipe cleaner stems face down. Now for the very beginning one, I'm going to fold it underneath itself and bring those pipe cleaner stems to the other side. Then I'm going to attach it just to one of the very end inside wires, twist it around a couple of times, and then I'm going to twist it around the very end wire just to make sure it's nice and anchored. It's not going to go anywhere. Now at this point, the wireframe is facing down. Now it's facing up, and we're going to start our first little bubble. So again, we're going to make sure that those stems are facing down. I'm going to be using the 2 inside wire for this attachment. So I'm feeding those pipe cleaners through the 2 outside openings, making sure those 2 inside wires are inside of the pipe cleaner. Then I'm just going to twist it around, making sure it's nice and tight, nice and secure, and that's our first bubble created. Then we're going to come in and we're going to add our second attachment. We're going to do the exact same method. So it's the 2 inside wires, wrap that pipe cleaner around those 2 inside wires, and then just twist it a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secure and that it's not going to go anywhere. And I'm just going to move it up, just making sure it looks good. I'm going to fluff up the first couple of my bubbles just to make sure it is how I want it to look. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to continue on with the same method, attaching it to those 2 inside wires. I'm moving on to the next section, and for this wreath, I am using 3 bundles per section. So that's going to be 3 pipe cleaners per section. It's going to give you 3 bundles or 3 bubbles per section as well. And I'm just going to continue on attaching those on there. And once I get to the very end, I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did in the beginning. I'm just going to flip that end piece right underneath to hide our cuts right at the very end, attach it, twist it around a couple of times, and then that's going to hide our little beginning and end. This portion is totally optional. I like to add a little hot glue on each side of that pipe cleaner just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. Like I said, it's totally optional. You don't have to do this. This is just a finishing touch that I like to do. And once that's all dry, now we can start fluffing up those beautiful bubbles. I am loving this Deco mesh. It's got some burlap in there with the cream color Deco mesh, and now our base is all ready to decorate. Of course, we're going to do another bow. This time we're going to do a really simple bow, the bundle bow, and I'm going to make my cuts at the 24-inch mark. So I'm just going to measure out that 24 inches, grab my scissors, and cut my ribbon at that 24-inch mark. So there are ribbon cut lengths for this. I'm using 2 different styles of ribbon. I'm going to have 3 pieces cut at 24 inches for ribbon number 1. For ribbon number 2, I'm going to be doing 2 pieces cut at the 24-inch mark as well. And this is going to create our little bundle bow. We're going to dovetail once more, but I'm only dovetailing one end of our ribbon. The other one we're just going to leave as is. I'm just going to dovetail all of those pieces. To create our little bow, the left-hand side is the straight edge, the right-hand side is our dovetail, and then I'm going to place my finger right at that 9-inch mark, hold it there, bring the straight side over to 16 inches, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over an inch at the 15-inch mark, and then I'm just going to gather that there. And what that does is that creates a tail at one end and a loop at the other, as you can see here. And then I'm just going to use my 2 fingers to hold that in place. Now I'm going to take my other ribbon. I'm going to make sure the good side is facing down. Again, straight edge on the left, cut dovetail on the right, place your finger on the 9-inch mark. Bring over that straight edge to the 16-inch mark, and then we're going to gather at the 15-inch mark and place it right in between my fingers to hold it in place. And then I'm just going to continue on with all 5 pieces of my ribbon doing the exact same thing. We're just measuring it off the 9 inches, folding over to the 16 and gathering at the 15-inch mark. So this is a total of 5 pieces of ribbon cut at the 24-inch mark to create our little bundle bow. I'm going to use a full length pipe cleaner and twist it around right at the center. I'm not going to cut the pipe cleaner stem because that's how we're going to attach it to our wreath. And then I'm just going to fluff it up a little bit here. Not too much because I'm going to squish it when I attach it, but here is our beautiful little bow ready to put on our wreath. To attach it to our wreath, I'm just going to take those 2 pipe cleaner stems, and like we've done previously, I'm just going to figure out where I want it. I'm going to pick up the wreath a couple of times just to make sure the bow is where I want it. Once I figure out where that is going to go, I'm just going to feed those pipe cleaners right through to the very back, twist it a couple of times, and then we have our beautiful bow all attached. And of course, guess what? It's fluffing time. I'm going to fluff up that bow a little bit, and once I'm happy with that, I'm going to hot glue some greenery just right at the top of that bow. This just comes from the Dollar Tree. It's greenery with a little bit of silver glitter on it. Of course, with Christmas decorations, there's always glitter everywhere. And then just for some color, I'm going to add those beautiful red berries right onto that greenery. Just like I said, to add some color and pizzazz into this already neutral colored wreath. And our final result here is our beautiful neutral colored burlap and cream candy cane wreath using 21-inch Deco mesh and creating this using the bubble method. Here it is on my door, just all of its glory showing us its beauty. I am going to be working with a 14-inch wire wreath frame today, along with this Kirkland ribbon from Costco. This is 2.5-inch wired ribbon. It's from Kirkland and it's 50 yards, and I think this was like $11. I got a red velvet, a striped one, and kind of a geometric Christmas one. If you don't have a Costco, Dollar Tree also has 2.5-inch wired ribbon that'll be perfect for this project, along with some white pipe cleaners that I'm going to be using and my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. First thing I'm going to do is cut all of my ribbon, and the magic number today is 8 inches. So I'm going to be measuring out and cutting all of my ribbon at the 8-inch mark. So I'm going to be doing all 3 of those different ribbons at the 8-inch mark. For this wreath, we're doing a ribbon wreath today. For ribbon 1, 2, and 3, there's 40 pieces each cut at the 8-inch mark. Now that totals about 960 inches, 80 feet, or about 27 yards of wired ribbon that I'm going to be using today. Once I got all those cuts done, I'm just going to fold it in half and then just cut on an angle to create dovetails on both sides on every single piece of ribbon that I am using today. And then once that's all done, I've got them all laid out along with pipe cleaners. Now these pipe cleaners I've just cut in half, and I'm going to be using half pipe cleaners. And I'm just going to use 5 pieces of ribbon. And what you're going to do is just gather it right in the center. Take your fingers, hold it right in there so it creates a little bow shape, if you will. Then grab your next ribbon, find the center, gather it together, and then lay it on top on an angle, kind of overlapping a little bit of our first ribbon. And then you're just going to keep picking random ribbons, doing the same thing, overlapping them, creating like a star shape. Again, I'm using 5 pieces of ribbon per bundle, and I'm going to be creating 24 bundles today. Once you've got that all done, then you just take a pipe cleaner, feed it through the middle, wrap it around, and then of course you can fluff up that ribbon a little bit at this point, and we've created our first bundle for our ribbon wreath. From that point, I'm going to do the same thing over and over again, just finding the center, gathering it together, placing it in my left hand, making sure I have those 5 pieces there, grab that pipe cleaner, and then just wrap it around the center, twisting it a couple of times, fluffing it up a little bit, and creating all of our 24 bundles for our Christmas ribbon wreath. Now that we have our bundles ready, we've got our wreath frame here. I'm going to be using the 2 middle wires of our wreath frame. There's 4 in total, so we're going to use the 2 middle, and I'm going to be creating sections here. So where the cross anchors are, I'm going to be placing 4 bundles per section. So that section again is in between those 2 bars. We're going to flip that face down, that's our wire wreath frame, and then we're going to also flip over our bundles we just created with those little V's there, and then I'm going to place them in the inside and outside holes such that the 2 wires in the middle are in between our pipe cleaner stems. Once that's there, then we're just going to twist it a couple times, fold over the excess of that pipe cleaner, and we've got our first attachment done. We're going to do the exact same thing with the second one, just placing the 2 wires in between our pipe cleaner, twisting it a couple of times, and then we move it down a little bit, and we keep adding on those little ribbon bundles per section. So I'm working on my 3rd one now, and I'm going to be adding the 4th and final one for this section right now, just twisting it right in place. Once I've got that twisted, we can flip it over, and then you can kind of see where we're going so far. So here is one section completely done, and you can just see that fullness of those ribbons. Now I'm just going to continue on the next section doing the exact same thing. You're just going to wrap those pipe cleaners around those 2 inside wires, and here's 2 sections done, and I am loving this right now. I'm so excited. I'm just going to finish the rest. And as I'm adding the last one on here, I know my favorite part is coming up is when I turn over the wreath for the first time. Let's flip this over, but first I'm going to make sure everything is nice and even, and I got all 4 per section. And look at that. Here is our beautiful ribbon wreath in its glory already, and we're not even done. But you can totally leave it here. You don't have to add on a bow. I'm going to show you how to make a really simple bow in just a second, but you can totally leave it there if you want. For my bow, I'm going to measure out 24 inches. So my ruler only goes up to 18. So I'm going to cut at the 6-inch mark. So that's 24 inches in total. And I'm going to cut 2 pieces. And then I'm going to cut additional piece at the 5-inch mark as well. So for a bow, there's 2 pieces cut at 24 inches, 1 piece cut at the 5-inch mark. Now with my 2 pieces and my little pipe cleaner, I'm going to place the good side facing down of my ribbon, fold it over. I'm going to find that middle mark where my index finger is, and then I'm going to overlap that one end a little bit right in the middle. Then I'm going to do the same thing for the other end. That's going to be our little middle section. I find that middle again, and then I'm just going to gather my fingers together, squish that all together. That's the center of our bow. And I'm going to place a pipe cleaner right in that middle. This is a full-length pipe cleaner that I'm using here. And I'm going to twist that a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secure, and then that bow is not going to go anywhere. Once that's all done, I'm going to dovetail the other 24-inch piece of ribbon, and this is just going to finish them off at the end. This is the tail that we're going to use. I'm going to place the good side facing down, find my center, gather it together with my fingers again. Then I'm just going to create a V shape with it, bending it over. And this is wired ribbon, so it does hold the shape a little bit. And then I'm going to place that right in between my two pipe cleaner stems, give it a couple of good twists. And with our little piece of ribbon, that 5-inch ribbon, I'm just going to fold it into thirds, just folding it over, creating one little width of ribbon, if you will. And then I'm going to place that right in the center. And then adding a little bit of hot glue for one end, folding it up, adding a little bit more hot glue for our second end. And then I'm just going to hold that right in place for a little bit just to make sure it's nice and dry. And once that's all dry, we have our bow ready for our wreath. Now I'm just going to take those pipe cleaners, find a spot, and then I'm just going to feed it right to the back. And then just like we added our bundles, I'm going to add and twist that pipe cleaner right around the two middle wires, flip it over, and then I'm going to center that bow, fluff it up a little bit because you know we have to fluff up the bows here at Dave's Wreaths and Things. And here is our beautiful wreath. Here it is hanging on my door, and I cannot tell you how much I love the combination of these ribbons. And of course that plain ribbon for the bow, you don't need more than that. I'm going to be using 4 of these mini Christmas trees from the Dollar Tree, along with this green floral foam, and I'm also going to be using 2.5-inch wired ribbon. You can use any ribbon you want. I have some leftover Christmas ornaments in red that I'm going to use, along with this red felt, and my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to unbox my Christmas trees. Now I'm going to do this particular method for 2 of the Christmas trees is I'm just fluffing them out. I'm not taking them apart. I'm not putting the stand on them. I'm just going to fluff them out. Of course, you know I love fluffing on my channel here, and this is the outcome. And I'm going to do 2 of these. I'm going to keep them together. I'm not going to take them apart. And the other 2 trees, I'm actually going to cut off the stems for each of those little green floral stems. I'm just using a wire cutter for this, just chopping them off at different lengths. And once that's all done, I'm just going to cut a little piece of my floral foam off. I'm going to take that red felt, cut it to size, and then I'm just going to glue that right at the bottom portion of that green floral foam. I'm just kind of wrapping it like a present, adding some hot glue on there, folding it over, and then once that's all done, I've got my base all created for our centerpiece. Now the bottom portion is the red felt, and I'm going to take those 2 full stems of the Christmas trees and I'm just going to add them right at the sides. They're just pushing them into the sides, and then of course I'm going to fluff them out just a little bit more to get that fullness and to create that beautiful full centerpiece. Once I've got those all in there and fluffed up, I'm going to grab the cut stems and I'm just going to start placing them right into that floral foam. Now for me, I don't usually do hot glue with my floral centerpieces just in case I want to take them apart and try something different. You can throw some hot glue on there before you insert them into the floral foam. But here we go. Once it's all done, of course, I'm going to clean up my mess that I created. And we have our centerpiece base all ready to go. And here I am, once again, fluffing on my channel. Once that base is all done, I'm going to take my 2.5-inch wired ribbon and I'm going to cut them at 8-inch marks. So I've cut 6 of them, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold them in half and I'm going to secure them with my stapler. You can use a glue gun if you want, but this will create a little teardrop shape for our quote unquote, let's say it's a deconstructed bow. So I'm just taking my staple gun, stapling that together and creating 6 of these little teardrop shapes. Once those are all done, I'm going to take my ribbon again and I'm going to estimate the length of the tails. So this is the tail portion of our little deconstructed bow. And then I'm just going to dovetail one end of those little tails. And to secure the tails on there, all I'm doing is I'm using a straight pin, sticking it right into that floral foam, and I'm going to add my tails on there first, one on one side, and then I'm going to add the other one on the other side. Now if you want, you can totally use hot glue. I'm just throwing them in there with a straight pin. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with our little teardrop loops that we created with our ribbon and our stapler as well. I'm going to do 2 on each side, and then I'm going to do 2 in the center. Once again, I'm just attaching them with that pin, that straight pin, and there we go. We have our little faux deconstructed bow on there, and you don't have to make a bow. You can just do this process as well. What I decided to do was cut some extra ones as well. These are a little bit shorter than the 8 inches, and I'm going to do the same thing. Fold them over, use my stapler to create a little teardrop shape, and this time I'm actually going to hot glue them right onto that green floral just to add a little bit more ribbon. I thought, you know what, it just needs a little bit more in here, so I thought I would do those smaller little teardrop shapes and add them right at the end of those floral arrangement. Once they're all in there, I'm going to take some time, make sure I like it, turn it around, make sure both sides are nice and even. I'm happy with that. And my next step is I'm going to add those Christmas ornaments on there. I'm just using hot glue. I'm going to start off with the larger ones, keep those kind of in the center of my centerpiece. And with the little ones, I'm just going to add those onto the ends. Again, I'm just using my hot glue gun to put those in there as well. Of course, the whole time I'm thinking, keep it simple, Dave, keep it simple, Dave, keep it simple, Dave. So I didn't use all of them. There's only 4 of them left over. But I thought, you know what? Once it was all done, I was so happy with this. It's a great, simple, easy DIY, and you can use all of these items coming from the Dollar Tree to keep the cost down as well. A beautiful, elegant, classic, timeless, traditional Christmas centerpiece that you can throw on your table, on your kitchen island. If you have a mantle, this is perfect to throw on that fireplace mantle or a credenza, anywhere you wish to throw this beautiful Christmas centerpiece on. Here is my wooden paint stir stick. This is a 5-gallon paint stir stick. I'm going to be using 10-inch by 10 yards poly Deco mesh. This is in black. I'm also going to be using 2.5 and 1.5 inch wired ribbon, along with some Christmas ornaments in silver, some black pipe cleaners, this little Merry Christmas gnome. If you've seen my Wreathmas Week series, you've seen him before. And of course, my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. Our magic number today is going to be the number 30. So today I am doing my cuts at the 30-inch mark. I'm just going to roll out my Deco mesh and cut at that 30-inch mark with my rotary cutter, and I'm just going to keep cutting at that length. Keep cutting, and then I'm going to be using the Cruffle or the Woodland Ruffle method today, and I'm using 10-inch by 10 yard poly Deco mesh, and I'm cutting 10 pieces at the 30-inch mark. To start, we're going to be measuring off our wooden stick, and then I'm just going to add a mark right in the center. This wooden stick is about 21 inches long, so I'm going to mark it right at the center at the 10.5 inch mark. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in 1 inch at each side, create a little mark as well, and then the remaining section, I'm going to divide it into thirds and mark that for our wreath form. And to start, I'm going to take a full-size pipe cleaner right at that middle mark, and then I'm going to twist it on the top side. So you see here, I'm just twisting it around on the top side, and then I'm going to add one right next to it, and I'm going to twist it this time at the bottom side. So I'm just taking that pipe cleaner over and twisting it. So we have one at the top and one at the bottom. Now the next one, I'm going to twist it right in the middle. So I'm putting another pipe cleaner on that mark, twisting it right in the center, and then moving on to my next mark, where I'm going to do the exact same thing as we did the first time around. Fold it over, twist it on the top side a couple of times, then we're going to grab another pipe cleaner, put it right beside that one, and we're going to twist on the bottom side. And for our remaining mark and our remaining stem, we're going to do the exact same thing as we did in the middle. We are just going to twist tie that right at the center. And once that's all done and secured, I'm just going to complete my wreath form with the same tops, bottoms, and centers on the left-hand side. Once that's all complete, I'm going to add some hot glue on there just to make sure everything's nice and secure. I'm going to let that dry, and there we have our working wreath frame all ready. Now what I'm going to do is take a piece of that Deco mesh, a little stone, and a clip, and I'm going to use the curl side up here. What I'm going to do is at one end, so the cut end is at the bottom and the left and right hand side are the manufactured or finished edges. And at the cut end, I'm just going to roll it over. I like to roll mine 3 or 4 times. I like to have a really nice loop there, or curl if you will. And then I'm going to turn it around 180 degrees, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the opposite side. So we're folding it over a little bit, then we're going to roll it about 3 or 4 times. And now you're going to take your thumbs and anchor them right at the center. And those fingers, you are just going to gather all of that Deco mesh up. Let those fingers do the walking, like I like to say all the time. And like those Yellow Pages ads used to say, if you know what I mean. And then we're going to gather it all together. Take that clip off when we reach the end. Gather it in the center. And you can see our cruffle, or woodland ruffle as well, has been created with the curls and with the ruffles right in the middle. Then I'm just going to open up my first pipe cleaner stem, add the center of our cruffle bundle in there, and then I'm just going to pull it tight and twist it a couple of times, making sure that that is nice and attached. And once that's all there, we have our first cruffle all attached. And then I'm just going to repeat the same method over and over again. I'm rolling it up on one side, adding the clip, turning it 180 degrees, rolling up the other side 3 or 4 times, anchor those thumbs, and here we go. Let those fingers do the walking. Create those little cruffles, and then right at the very end, take that clip off, grab it by the middle, and we're going to move on to our next open pipe cleaner stem and attach that. I'm going to do this exact same method over and over again, creating our ruffle bundles and attaching them to each of my open pipe cleaner stems, just following the exact same process over and over again, rolling, ruffling, attaching, and twisting. That is your method of procedure for this beautiful swag stir stick wreath. Now before I finish, I'm going to add a little loop to hang it. So right on the bottom side of the last little stem, I'm going to add another pipe cleaner there, and I'm going to do this underneath it. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to twist tie it on the back side. I'm going to add a little glue on the front side just to make sure it's nice and secure there, and then I'm going to create a little loop and just twist those pipe cleaners around itself, and I'm going to create a little loop where we can hang this beautiful door swag. Here's my loop all done, and then I'm just going to add a little hot glue as well to make sure that doesn't go anywhere, and then I'm going to continue on my merry way, cruffling away. Is that even a word? I'm going to make it a word. Cruffling is now a word. And I'm adding my very last cruffle on here, my little bundle, twist tying it in place, and we have our base wreath all done. Of course, I have to fluff it all up first, but now it's all ready to decorate. And the first thing I'm going to do is make a beautiful bundle bow. I'm going to cut my pieces at the 18-inch mark. So I have silver ribbon, I have this black and white checkered, and I have a silver glittery ribbon as well. So for the silver glittery ribbon, I have 3 pieces cut at 18 inches. The solid silver, 4 pieces cut at 18 inches. The black and white checkered, I have 2 pieces cut at the 18-inch mark. And then once they're all cut, I'm just going to fold them over, cut on an angle to create my dovetail. And I'm only going to do this on one side. We only need one side dovetailed. The other side we can leave. And to create our bow, I'm just going to lay my ribbon down with the cut side on the right-hand side, and that's the dovetail. And then on the straight edge, I'm just going to fold it over just a little bit more than halfway, and then I'm going to come up a little bit, gather it, and then I've created my loop and my tail, and then I'm just going to place that in between my fingers, and then I move on to my next ribbon. So good side facing down, dovetail on the right-hand side, bring over the straight edge a little bit past the center, gather it together, and then you place it in your fingers, and then you can just work on the next ribbon, so on and so forth. I'm using 3 different ribbons, so I'm alternating between those different ribbons. Once that's all done, I'm going to take a full-size pipe cleaner, twist tie it right in the center there, making sure I've got all the ribbon gathered, lay it all out, fluff it all up a little bit, because we all love to fluff on this channel, and we all know it. Once that's all done, we have our beautiful bow ready for attachment. We're going to move on to cut some more ribbon, and this time I'm going to cut them at the 12-inch mark. And this is going to be the ribbon for our pipe cleaner stem. So the black and white check, I'm cutting 8 pieces at 12 inches. And for the solid silver, I'm cutting 3 pieces at 12 inches. Now I don't have any of the silver ribbon left, so unfortunately I'm not going to be using it for the stems. And now I'm just going to dovetail both sides of all of those cut ribbons. Once that's all done, I'm going to take the black checkered ribbon and the silver ribbon. I'm going to crisscross it together, gather it in the middle, fold it over in a V shape, and then at the very end stem, I'm going to add that right in between. Now, like I mentioned previously, I have a limited amount of ribbon today. I had a lot of the black and white check, but the solid silver and the silver glittery ones, I didn't have a lot of. So for this ribbon attachments, I'm only going to be using 3 pieces of the silver solid ribbon, but I am going to be using all of the pieces for the black and white. And now here I am just with the same method. I'm attaching the single black and white checkered, and then I'm just cutting off the pipe cleaner stems as I attach them. Now the center 2 I'm not going to be using because that's where my sign is going to be, and that's where the bow is going to be as well. So that's why we're not attaching any ribbon there, and that's why we only have 8 pieces each. But I'm going to add on more of my ribbon, and once it's all done, here is the final product before we add our sign. And here's my sign. I've just used pipe cleaner stems, glued them on the back, and then I'm going to find where I can attach them, feed that pipe cleaner all the way through, twist it a couple of times right at the back, and then I'm going to go to the front again and find my center, make sure everything looks good, and then I'm going to attach the other bottom half as well, just wrapping it around the wood stick right at the backhand side. And then of course, once he's all positioned there, look at how beautiful he looks. Are you a fan of gnomes? I absolutely love gnomes. I do collect gnomes, I will admit that. They're all over my house this time of year. And here we are attaching our bow with the same method. I'm just feeding the pipe cleaners right through the backhand side, wrapping them around the stick, twisting a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secure. And then I'm going to spend a little bit of time of fluffing it up just a little bit at this point. And then the last step, I'm going to add all of those Christmas ornaments on there. And what I'm doing is I'm adding all of those Christmas ornaments right on where the pipe cleaner stems are. So it kind of hides the pipe cleaner stems a little bit and gives us a little bit of that silver color as well. Once those are all glued down, we have our Merry Christmas gnome with our black Cruffle Method poly deco mesh, our black and white and silver wreaths, our gorgeous Christmas swag wreath. Say that 10 times fast, I just got tongue-tied. Here it is hanging on my door in all of its glory, and I just love how this turned out. I was a little skeptical using the black, but I think it turned out really, really well. What do you guys think about our Merry Christmas gnome Christmas swag? I found this clay gray pot at the dollar store. I thought it would be perfect for this. A couple of deco mesh at 6 inches in red and white, and a couple of these green floral foams, this styrofoam ball, these decorative rocks in a bag, some wooden dowels, these little cherries or cranberries, if you will, picks, this 1.5 inch wire ribbon, and some red spray paint, along with my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. I'm going to start off with my clay pot. It's gray, but I wanted it red, and I couldn't find a red one, so I'm going to take it out of my garage, give it a couple of really good coats of spray paint. While that's all drying, I'm going to take a wooden dowel, some white acrylic paint, and a paintbrush, and I'm just going to paint that entire wooden dowel, stick it in one of the floral foams to dry, and while that's all drying, I am going to take the next step and start cutting my deco mesh. This is 6-inch deco mesh, and I'm going to cut it at 7-inch lengths. It just so happens my little cutting board here is 7 inches, so I just wrap it around, cut it on both sides, and boom, we've got all of our cuts done for that one roll. And of course, again, I'm cutting at the 7-inch mark, and I'm going to do for the red as well. In total, I'm using 2 white deco mesh rolls and 2 red deco mesh rolls. So that's a total of 4 deco mesh rolls if you're planning on using a different color, etc., to create this. For each bundle, I'm going to use 2 pieces of white deco mesh and 2 pieces of red deco mesh, along with a half pipe cleaner. So this is just a regular pipe cleaner I've cut in half. And all I'm doing is I am taking my deco mesh with the curled side up, and then I'm just rolling it into a tube shape, or like I like to say on my channel, a little cannoli, because I love food, and why not a food reference, right? Here I am rolling up my last bundle. Then I'm going to take that pipe cleaner, slide it along the palm of my hands, transfer the deco mesh to the right, twist the pipe cleaners with my left, making sure it's nice and secure, and then I'm just going to cut off those excess pipe cleaners, and that creates our first little bundle. So again, I'm just going to continue on making bundles. This is my second one. I'm rolling up that deco mesh into tube shapes. I'm taking a half pipe cleaner as well. So it's 4 pieces of deco mesh. Take that pipe cleaner, wrap it around the center, give it a couple of really good twists, and cut off the excess. We've got our second bundle, and now I'm going to create all the other bundles. So like I said previously, I did 4 rolls of the deco mesh. This is the Dollar Tree 6-inch deco mesh, creating 25 bundles. When those bundles are all created, I'm just going to take my styrofoam ball, add a little hot glue down, place the center of our little bundle right in the hot glue, and I'm going to take a little straight pin and just push that right into the center, right through the glue, right through the deco mesh. Then I'm going to move on to my second bundle, repeating the same process, covering up that styrofoam ball. Add a little glue, add our bundle, add that pin in there, and then I'm just going to keep going and going and going with those bundles until they're all on there. And like I said before, it was a total of, I think, 25 bundles that I got from those 4 rolls of deco mesh. And each bundle has the 4 pieces of deco mesh, and again, cut at 7 inches. I'm adding my last one on here, and then I'm going to show you that little deco mesh ball we just created. And for a finishing touch, I'm just going to add a little bit of interest and add these cranberries. They are in groups of 3, so that's perfect for me. I love odd numbers to work with. And I'm going to add a little hot glue on the end and just stick those in there randomly around. Then I'm going to take that dowel, stick it in, make sure it's nice and secured with my hot glue gun. And I'm just going to make sure it's all centered. But here is our top half of the topiary, all complete. Now we just have to do the bottom half. And for that, I'm going to add a bow, and my cut lengths for this bow is, I'm going to cut one piece at 14 inches. I'm going to cut another piece at 4 inches. And my last piece for the tail, this is going to be 28 pieces. And this is 1.5 inch wired ribbon. So again, one piece cut at 14 inches, one piece cut at 4 inches. And for the tails, I'm cutting one piece at the 28 inch mark. Then I'm just going to take a little hot glue on the 14-inch piece at the end, roll it over until itself, creating a little tube. And then for that little 4-inch piece, I'm going to fold it over into thirds, and I'm just pressing it down with my fingers. That worked well for this ribbon. And then we're going to take that 14-inch piece, find our center, squish it together, gathering it in the center, grab another half pipe cleaner, and just twist it around right at the center, giving it a couple of good twists. And then just to cover up that pipe cleaner, we're going to use that 4-inch piece that we folded into thirds, adding a little glue, folding over one section, opening up those pipe cleaners first, because we're still going to use those, adding some glue down, folding it over, and then repeat the same process for the top half, for cutting off the excess as well. And the top half we fold over into the hot glue, just holding it down for a bit. Once it's dry, we cut off that little piece. For our tail, I'm just going to find my center, gather it together, create a little V shape with it, add it right in between those pipe cleaner stems, give it a couple of good twists to make sure it's secure, and boom, we have our nice simple single bow ready for our topiary. And to finish it off, I'm going to add a red and white piece of twine. It's got kind of like a candy stripe shape to it. And I thought, you know what, right at the lip of the pot, we'll add this just for an extra little pizzazz. I love pizzazz, so just a little pizzazz there. Then I'm gonna add the rocks right at the bottom for some weight, and that round styrofoam green floral foam. I'm just gonna add right in the pot at the center. This white material is Christmas tree fabric, so it kind of looks like a little bit of a snow deal going on there. I'm going to cut a couple pieces of that off. I'm just cutting it randomly. I'm not measuring anything because I want to make sure that that green floral foam doesn't go anywhere. And then I'm going to add a whole bunch of hot glue. And of course, what do? I put my finger right in the hot glue. Ouch. Yes, it hurt. I got over it. And now we're going to add our top half of the topiary. I'm just going to position it right in the middle. Make sure I've got that middle section. Push down, creating a hole. And then I'm going to fill that hole with a bunch of more hot glue just to make sure everything's nice and secure. Add our top half of the topiary. Let it dry. And for finishing touches, I cut off another piece of that white Christmas skirt, added it on top. The pipe cleaner stems just wrapped around right at the bottom of that dowel to attach our ribbon. And this time around, I decided not to do dovetails. I just did slanted angles following the pattern on our ribbon to finish it off. And I just love how this bow added a little bit of pizzazz to the bottom half of this topiary. Here it is on my kitchen counter with our little Santa Claus on my little sign, and I am just beaming eye to eye on how bright, colorful, and Christmassy our little Christmas topiary turned out, and I hope you enjoy it as well. Today I'm going to be using the 14-inch round wire wreath frame, 6-inch Deco mesh in black and red, some various patterns and sizes of wired ribbon, pipe cleaners to match. I found this little gnome sign. I actually didn't end up using it in the end, but that's okay. These little round Christmas ornaments, and of course my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. I'm going to start off with my wired wreath frame and full-length pipe cleaners to make a working wreath frame. For this particular working wreath frame, we're going to use the 2 inner wires and the 2 outer wires, and we're going to put 1 right in the middle and 2 at the very end as well. So that's 1 right in the middle too, so I'm doing that one right now. I'm just attaching that pipe cleaner right on there, twisting it around the first 2 wires, making it nice and secured. And then what I'm going to be doing is using the 2 outside wires to attach 2 more stems for this. So the same process, I grab that pipe cleaner, wrap it around the 2 outside wires, and just secure it in place by twisting it. So that is 1 in the middle, 2 on the outside per section, and I'm going to do this 5 more times, so it's a total of 6 sections that I'm completing. And once we're all done, you can see the outer ones, we have a total of 12 stems, and then on the inside a total of 6, and this is our working wreath frame for today. I'm going to take my Deco mesh and I just layered it. So I'm doing red, and black, just laying it on top of each other. And then I'm just going to gather with my fingers right at the very end. So I'm coming in about 1 inch right from the edge, gathering it all together. And then I'm going to open up the first inside stem, lay that right in there, pull it a little bit tight, and then twist a couple of times to make sure it's nice and secure. And we've got our first attachment done, and I'm just going to cut the excess off just to clean it up just a little bit. I like to do that. It's not necessary, but you totally can do it if you want. I'm going to be using 9-inch lengths today. So I am just going to pull out that Deco mesh. I'm starting at the 5-inch and I'm going to gather it at the 14-inch, and that's my 9 inches. Then we're going to go to the next available inner pipe cleaner stem and just place where we gathered that Deco mesh right in between the 2 pipe cleaner stems. Going to twist it a couple of times and we have our first attachment. We are making a poof wreath method today, and again I'm using 9 inches. I'm going to pull out that Deco mesh, gather it together, and then where I've gathered it, I'm going to place it right in between my next open pipe cleaner stems, and I'm going to twist those around a couple of times. I'm going to continue that same process all the way on the inside of my Deco mesh, measuring out the 9 inches, gathering it, and placing it right in between those 2 pipe cleaners. For the last one, I'm going to attach it to the same pipe cleaner stem where we started, and now I'm going to move to the outside wire. You'll have an additional stem right here, and we kind of want to go to that, but we're not going to. We are going to the next pipe cleaner stem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from that inner one to the next available +1 pipe cleaner stem. We're going to measure out our 9 inches. We're going to forget about that first one, and then we're going to move to the second one. The reason for that is we want all of our poofs to stay the same size. If we go to that closest one, our poof is going to be a little bit smaller. So we want it nice and even. So we're just going to skip that first one and then go to the next. Once I finish doing all of the outside, I'm on my last little poof that I'm creating. I'm cutting off that excess after I measured my 9 inches, and now I'm going to attach that to the first one we did on the outside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull those poofs apart just a little bit so the black and the red are both exposed, so we have both of those beautiful colors showing, and I'm going to do that all the way around our wreath. So there we have our poof method all done for our base wreath. Now it's time to decorate. And for this, I'm going to be adding some ribbon, and I'm cutting all of my ribbon at the 10-inch mark. So I have this red and black checkered ribbon, again cutting it at the 10-inch mark. I have this sheer glittery red ribbon, and I also have this solid red glittery ribbon, all cuts at 10 inches. For this particular wreath, I cut ribbon number 1, 36 pieces at 10 inches. Ribbon number 2, 6 pieces at 10 inches, and ribbon number 3, 6 pieces cut at the 10-inch mark. Now you can do as many ribbons as you want per bundle. That's just my choice for my wreath today. And then I'm going to come through and I'm going to cut on an angle all of my ribbon just to dovetail it. Now you can do 2 at a time like I'm showing you here. If you want, that speeds up the process a little bit. And once all of that is done, I have my ribbon all cut, all dovetailed, ready to attach to my wreath. And we're going to attach right in between those pipe cleaner stems where we attached our Deco mesh previously. I'm going to take 2 of those 2.5-inch wired ribbon, the black and the red, and then I'm going to take a red glittery ribbon, lay that on top in a crisscross pattern, gather it together with my fingers, and then I'm going to open up that pipe cleaner stem, and then I'm just going to place that right in the center, making sure it's right in there in between those 2 pipe cleaner stems, and then I'm just going to twist it a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secure. I'm not going to fluff anything right now. I'm just going to move on to the next ribbon attachment. And for me, I'm going to alternate between adding the sheer ribbon and the glitter ribbon. This one here, I'm just adding 2 of the checkered ribbon on my next available pipe cleaner stem. And then when I move to the next one on the right hand side, I'm going to add the 2 checkered patterns along with that sheer ribbon. And that'll be the pattern that I'm going to be working with today. Again, you can choose any ribbon, any color, any pattern that you want, how many ribbons you want to put into each pipe cleaner stem. It's totally your personal choice. This is the way I went today. I'm just alternating between adding those 1.5-inch wired ribbon or leaving it without. So here I am just attaching it right on the outside, and then I'm going to come into the inside as well, attaching all of those ribbons. Once that's all done, Here we go. We have our ribbons attached, pipe cleaner stem still intact. I'm going to cut those off. I didn't show you here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add little Christmas ornaments right on top of where our pipe cleaner stems are. So I've cut those pipe cleaner stems off, glued on some of those Christmas baubles, and now, of course, our favorite thing to do on my channel is the fluffing. I'm gonna fluff to my heart's content, and there is our beautiful wreath all ready for that sign that we're gonna add on. Or am I gonna add it on? I'll show you a little process that I went through. I couldn't figure out if I wanted to add this sign or not. I put it down and I thought, I don't think it goes. So then I was on a rampage. Now I'm like, okay, does this go with the birds? No, the red birds aren't gonna fit. The penguin didn't fit. I thought he was really cute. Poinsettias didn't work. And then, of course, I keep trying different signs, different items. I just, in the end, couldn't really figure out what I wanted to put on this wreath. I found some white doves, and that didn't work either. I found this bow that I had made previously for a previous project. That didn't work out. In the end, I did one last thing, was I found this little topper for the cookie tin, and then I thought, you know what? This looks amazing just the way it is. It's a very simple wreath. It doesn't scream Christmas or slap Christmas in your face. It's very simple, yet you know what? Elegant and beautiful right at the same time. We have little hints of Christmas in there, which I absolutely love. And here it is hanging on my door, and I am so happy I didn't add that sign on there or any other embellishment. What would your choice be? Would you add or just leave it alone as well? I'm going to be using a 14-inch round wire wreath frame, and I found this material. It kind of looks like Deco mesh. I thought it was originally Deco mesh, but it's kind of a fabric with some gold Christmas trees. We're going to experiment with that a little today. Some 2.5-inch wired ribbon in various patterns. I'm going to be using Christmas ornaments. I'm going to be using the large ones today, along with this floral pick that has some gold accents on it. Pipe cleaners in white, and of course my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my pipe cleaners in half. So I just folded them over, cut them in half, and then what I'm going to do is about 1 inch from the end, I'm just going to gather that fabric all together, hold it nice and tight, grab that half pipe cleaner, and then I'm just going to twist it right around the end with these stems facing up. So I'm just going to twist it around, making sure it's nice and secure. Then I'm going to flip it so it's good side facing down, and I'm going to attach those pipe cleaner stems onto the 2 middle wires along with that cross or the intersection wire as well. So that's where I'm going to be placing my pipe cleaner stem. So I'm just going to put that down, flip it over so you can kind of see how I'm doing this, and I'm making sure that those 2 inner wires and that intersection wire is right in between my pipe cleaner stems. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to twist that a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secure, that that's not going to go anywhere, and that's nice and anchored. Then I'm going to flip it over with everything facing up, so my good side's facing up, and then I'm just going to feed that excess material right through to the bottom. After that, I'm going to grab my ruler, and today I'm going to be measuring out to 8 inches. So that's going to be our bundle lengths. Then I line up where the pipe cleaner is on the left, and I'm going to measure out 8 inches. And then at the 8-inch mark, I'm just going to gather the material, bring it towards my wire frame, grab my half pipe cleaner, twist it around such that the stems are facing down. And then once that's secure, I'm going to attach it to the 2 inside wires. I'm going to flip it over so you can see me attaching it here. And then I'm just going to twist that pipe cleaner stem right around those 2 inside wires, getting it nice and secure. We flip it over, we can fluff it out a little bit, and this is where we're going to go with our bundles. So again, I'm measuring out the 8 inches, bringing it towards my wire frame, twisting the pipe cleaners a little bit, and then I'm going to attach them to the wire frame and those 2 inside wires. And I'm just going to repeat this process over and over again until I fill up the entire wreath. Measuring out that 8 inches, gathering it together, grabbing my pipe cleaner, twisting it, making sure the stems are facing down, bringing it towards my wire frame, and then attaching it to my wire frame in the 2 middle wires, just twisting it around a couple times. For this wreath, I'm doing 3 to 4 bundles per section. I'm using 2 full lengths of or 2 full rolls, I should say, of the fabric. And then once I'm done, I just attach that last one. And then of course I'm gonna fluff it up just a little bit because I love fluffing. You all know that. So this ended up being almost like a bubble style. And I am so happy with this fabric. I just love how this turned out. Here is our base wreath all ready to decorate. And for one of the embellishments or one of the decorations, I am going to create a bow, and I'm going to cut my 2.5-inch wired ribbon at 20 inches. So my ruler is only 18 inches long, so I just mark the end, bring it down, and then cut it at the 2-inch mark, and that's going to be 20 inches. So I'm going to do that for 3 different styles of ribbon. You can see me cutting them right here. And for my lengths, ribbon number 1, which is the polka dot ribbon, I'm doing 4 pieces at 20 inches. Ribbon number 2, which is the golden cream ribbon, 2 pieces cut at 20 inches. And ribbon number 3, which is the sheer gold, 3 pieces cut at 20 inches. Once I've got all my cuts completed, I'm just going to dovetail the end. I'm only dovetailing one end of these. You can do multiple ones at the same time as long as you have a nice, good, sharp pair of scissors. And once that's all done, we are going to create our bundle bow. I'm going to have my dovetail facing the right-hand side and the good side facing down. And once I do that, I'm just going to bring that straight edge just kind of a little bit past the center point, and then I'm going to gather that together. And then what that's going to do is that's going to create a tail on one end and a loop on the other end. And then I'm just going to hold that in between my 2 fingers, and I'm going to repeat the same process. And I'm going to go back and forth between my ribbon. So my different styles of ribbon, I am just going to make sure that the good side faces down, fold it over a little bit more than half, and then place that right in between my fingers. Once all of those bundles are created, I'm going to grab a full-length pipe cleaner, just wrap it around where my fingers used to be, give it a couple of really good twists, and then I'm just going to fluff up the bow just a little bit. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but here is our bow all ready for our wreath. Then I'm just going to take that Christmas pick and I'm going to just take it apart. And what I like to do is what I call a dry run. So I'm just placing everything on my wreath. I'm not gluing anything down at this point. I'm going to add my bow on there as long as all my other embellishments. And then once I get it where I like it, I'm just going to kind of stand up, make sure that I like it. And a little tip that I always do is I like to bring out my phone. Once I finish my dry run, I'm going to take a picture of it just for me to reference later on, because what I am going to do is I'm going to take everything off and then I'm going to start attaching items on there. So the first thing I attach is my bow. I'm just going to feed those pipe cleaners right through to the back, and then I end up attaching it to the 2 middle wires and that cross wire, giving it a couple of good twists. Then I'm just going to cut that excess off, and now I can start gluing everything down. So I'm gluing that green floral pick down along with some of those gold embellishments, and I do take my phone out just to kind of see where everything was in my dry run, and I just continue gluing everything down in place. And of course we're going to fluff up that bow a little bit because I have to. I just have to. You know I have to. And what I realized was I forgot to put on those Christmas ornaments. So I'm just taking 2 of the solid gold ones. I'm going to glue those on at this point. And then once that's all glued down, our beautiful gold theme Christmas wreath is all complete using that beautiful fabric. So it's kind of like a burlap almost. It's got these gold glittery Christmas trees on there. And of course, that beautiful Christmas floral pick along with that huge bow to finish off our gold themed Christmas wreath. Here it is in all of its glory, hanging on my door, just sparkling and shining with all of that glitter. And of course, all that glitter got all over my craft table. I'm going to be using this plastic round plate. I also found this cardboard box that has a lid on it. It's in a circular shape. I thought it would be perfect for the top hat, along with some Christmas picks, this 2.5-inch wired ribbon, and of course chocolates. We love chocolates, and some black spray paint, and as well my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. I'm going to start off with some felt, and this is just a felt roll that I got from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to take the base of that and place it right down and trace it with my pencil, and then I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to be using this later on. I'm just going to put it off to the side for now, but you'll see how I use it just right in the center there to kind of add some finishing touches to the inside. Once that's put to the side, I'm going to grab the top portion, and I'm also going to grab the plate, put that together, outline it with my Sharpie pen, and I'm going to add a whole bunch of hot glue to make sure that goes right in the center. I'm going to hold that down for a bit, and then I'm just going to outline the rim where the bottom of the box and the plate stand, and I'm just going to make sure that's nice and secure. Take it outside and spray paint the entire thing. Once it's all done, you can kind of see it taking shape now. I've painted everything, and now it's going to be time for me to add that circle that we just cut right in the beginning. And I'm going to place that right at the bottom. This is just a little finishing touch. You don't have to do that if you don't want. Then I'm trying to figure out the length that I need with the felt on the inside, find the length, cut that off, and then of course I'm going to need to find the height as well. I just place that right inside the top hat, cut that, and then I have my little piece ready for the inside. And I'm going to start off with my hot glue gun, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a strip of hot glue, add that right on the inside, and then for the rest of it I'm going to use some Elmer's school glue, and this is just white glue that I'm just laying out, and I'm doing sections of it, unrolling my little felt sheet there. That just gives me a little bit of time. Hot glue does dry so fast, and with the white glue, what that does, it just gives me an opportunity to move the felt around just a little bit, make sure it's placed where I want it to go, and once that's all done, we have our inside all finished with our felt. Love how this is turning out so far. And now I'm kind of trying to decide which ribbon I'm going to use for the top hat. I had this burgundy scroll ribbon, also this burlap poinsettia ribbon. Which one would you use? I actually ended up with the burlap poinsettia one, and I'm going to just glue that right on there. So I add a little strip of hot glue at the beginning, and then every so often I'm going to wrap it around and add a little bit of hot glue as well. I'm not gluing the whole thing down, just every now and then I'm going to come around, make sure it's all in its place, and once I come to the end, find out the length I need, I'm just going to take my scissors, cut that off, and then we're going to add a little bit of more hot glue right at the very end to make sure it's all nice and secure on there. Press it right down, and then I'm going to take apart those floral picks. These are just Christmas floral picks I found. I've got some greenery on there with poinsettias, and then I'm going to start with my larger pieces, gluing those on there. So these large pine pieces, and then the middle-sized ones, and then I eventually add the berries, my poinsettia, and we have our little Frosty the Snowman hat candy dish all ready. And of course, we have to add candy to it. I'm adding some chocolates and some peppermints, putting on that lid, and here we go. We have our Frosty candy dish hat all ready to place on our table. And then of course, a little surprise on the inside of those wonderful chocolates. I'm just going to grab a handful for myself. But here is our Frosty hat as requested. I was really excited. I'm going to be using the round 14-inch wire wreath frame, along with some 6-inch Deco mesh in white. I found these two different sizes of the snowflake ornaments, along with this already prepared bow, and I'm going to be using my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm just going to glue down the end piece of my Deco mesh. And all I'm going to do for this is I'm just going to wrap that Deco mesh all the way around my wreath frame. I'm not really being precise with it. It's going to be hidden anyways. And at the very end, I'm just going to lay down a whole bunch of hot glue and make sure it's nice and secure. And I'm just going to take my little tool to dab that in there. Once it's all dry, I'm going to cut off the excess and we have our base wreath all ready to create this beautiful snowflake wreath. I'm going to start with the larger size snowflakes. Now these come from the Dollar Tree and I'm using the back side, which is the flatter side of the wreath frame. So you see I flipped it over with the curved side facing down, and all I'm doing is I'm just hot gluing those snowflakes on there, and I'm just pushing them down to make sure that they glue right to that Deco mesh and they don't go anywhere. And I'm also going to use these clear plastic snowflakes as well. These are large as well, and I'm just going to layer them on top of the first layer of the white snowflakes that I used. And really there's no plan for this, I'm just kind of adding everything on. And I'm also going to be using the smaller snowflakes, so they are in clear plastic and in white plastic as well. In total, I used 6 of these smaller snowflakes and I used 4 of the larger snowflake packages, and these are just little ornaments. I'm just going to finish it off with the white plastic ornaments, and once it's all done, look at this. How glittery and white and snowflakey is that? Now, I used a already made bow from the Dollarama. It's a local dollar store. You can just glue that on right at the bottom and boom, you're absolutely done with this beautiful wreath. Or you can also make your own ribbon. So I'm just using 1.5 inch wired ribbon. I'm going to make my cuts at 16 inches, and then I'm going to do another cut at the 14-inch mark. And then I'm going to do another one at 5 inches. So for this bow, I'm going to do 2 pieces at 16 inches, 1 piece at 14 inches, which is our tail, and 1 piece cut at 5 inches. That's going to create our little homemade bow. And then what I'm going to be doing is I'm taking that 14-inch long piece, putting it right to the side because that's for the tail. And then for the other remaining 3 pieces of ribbon, I'm just going to add a little bit of hot glue on the edge, fold it over, and creating a little loop. I'm going to be doing that for all 3 pieces of the ribbon. Once that's all done, I'm just going to take the first one, find my center, and then I'm going to lay the second one on top in a crisscross pattern. Add a half pipe cleaner that I just cut in half, twist it around the back, scrunching it together first, and then wrapping that pipe cleaner right around the center. Then we're going to use the smallest loop, and I'm just going to hot glue this right into the center, press it down, hold it there for a little bit, make sure it's nice and secure and where I want it positioned, and then of course I'll fluff up my bow a little bit. And now for the tail, we're just going to dovetail each end, folding it in half, cutting on an angle, and that finishes off our tail. I'll fold it in half, find my middle, and then I'm going to fold that in half as well, wrap another pipe cleaner around that. Once that's secure, cut off the excess, add a little bit of hot glue on the back side of our bow, and that's where we're going to place our tails. And then once that's all dry, we have our little bow all ready for our snowflake wreath. And here's the bow that we just made on our wreath. Again, you don't have to do that. You can use a store-bought bow if you want. I went back and forth trying to figure out which one I wanted to use, and I finally decided I'm going to use the store-bought bow. I just loved the ribbon on it with the snowflakes, matches the snowflakes wreath that we just did, so I went with that store-bought bow. And of course, for everybody who's having issues making bows, this is a great way to add a bow to your wreath. And our final result is our beautiful, glittery, snowy snowflake wreath with our snowflake bow there. I love the pop of red against that white. Here it is against my door, shining and glittering in all of its glory. Again, that red against the white. I am just in love with this, and I had so much fun making this wreath. Today I'm using the 14-inch circular wire wreath frame along with this chunky yarn in white. I'm going to be using this Santa hat as well in black and white checkered, these red Christmas bulbs, and my regular crafting utensils to create this project today. I'm first going to start out just wrapping the yarn around my hand. The ball is a little bit large to feed through, so I'm just going to create a smaller ball. I'm going to add some hot glue right on that cross wire, right in the center there, and then flip it over, add some more add some more hot glue right on that wire as well, cut off the excess, and then I just start wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. And guess what? More wrapping till my heart's content. And once I get to the crossbar again, I'm going to add some more hot glue, and then I'm just going to overlay that with the yarn as well. That way it's going to keep that section in place. And then I just move on to my next section, wrapping that yarn until my heart's content. Of course, it takes a little bit of time to do this, but trust the process. It's beautiful in the end. And once I do get to the end, I add a little bit of hot glue on the back side, place my yarn in there, make sure it's glued down, and then cut off the excess. And then we have our base wreath that's nice and soft, ready to go. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cutting mat. It's about 9 inches in length, and I'm wrapping it around about 10 or 12 times. Just kind of wrapping it around, and then I'm going to cut the excess off, and then I'm going to take a small pipe cleaner. This is in white, twist it around one of the ends, making sure it's nice and secure. And then on the other end, I'm just going to grab my scissors and chop that off. So we're creating a little tassel here, and you'll see what I'm doing with this in a bit. So again, wrapping it around, using that pipe cleaner on one end, just twisting it in place, then cutting the ends, creating a little tassel. And I created 6 of those little tassels. We're going to bring back our wreath frame, and I'm going to start attaching those tassels right at the bottom. So I'm going to attach 3 at the bottom of the wreath frame. So 1 in the middle, 2 on the sides, and then I'm going to attach 2 on top of the 3. So kind of like a pyramid effect, if you will. So once that's all glued in place, I'm just going to take this little red Christmas bulb and I'm gluing that right into those little beard that we just created. And for my final tassel, I'm just going to add it right to the back to kind of engulf that nose. So it's going to be a little big red nose there. Then it's time to attach my hat. I'm just going to figure out the placement that I want on it. Once I get my placement, I'm going to add some hot glue right down, and I'm going to press that in place right at the front just to make sure it's nice and secured. And then I'm going to flip that wreath over, do the back side the same way, making sure that that hat isn't going to go anywhere. Once that's done, I flip it over, and then I decide I'm going to glue down the hat tassel right at the side. I liked the placement of it, so I decided I'm going to do that. And here is our final Santa with that big white beard wreath, that red and black checkered Santa hat that I just love so much. That little red nose, and here it is hanging on my studio door in all of its glory. Mr. Santa Claus saying, "Ho, ho, ho, Merry Christmas." We're going to go big today, and I'm using an 18-inch wire wreath frame, some 10-inch Deco mesh in green and white. I show the red, but I don't end up actually using it today. I have an elf wreath attachment. You can see the legs and the hat there. This wooden sign that says, "Don't get your tinsel in a tangle." 2.5-inch wired ribbon in various colors and sizes, some Christmas ornaments that are nice and large, along with some other regular green and red Christmas ornaments, these little candy cane picks, this little metal "To Santa" letters sign, and of course, I'm going to be using my regular crafting utensils to create this project. I'm going to start off making my working wreath frame, and I'm going to work in one section at a time. Now, this is a larger wreath frame, so it's like the 14-inch, but it's just a little bit larger. So I'm going to grab my full-length pipe cleaners. We're going to work on our working frame first, and I'm going to use the 2 outside edges plus that crossbar. Then I'm just going to take my pipe cleaner, wrap it around, and twist it a couple of times. Our next attachment is going to go right in the middle of that section on the 2 outside wires. We're going to wrap that around, and then we're going to hit the other crossbar and do the exact same thing, twist that around, so we have 3 per section. Then for the next section, we're going to work in the middle, then we're going to hit that crossbar, work in the middle, hit the crossbar for all of those sections. So now we have our outer section all done. We're going to work in the middle, and then we're going to use the 2 inside wires right in between our 2 existing pipe cleaner stems we just created. So I'm just taking that full length pipe cleaner, going right in between the outside stems and attaching on the 2 inside wires. And I'm going to finish up doing the same method throughout the entire inside of that wreath. And once we're done, we have our working wreath all ready, and we have 12 stems on the outside and 12 stems on the inside for a total of 24 stems all around. Next, our beautiful number for the day, or the number 1 number, is 30 inches. Number 1 number? I don't know. Anyways, we're going to be doing 30-inch cuts today. I just made myself laugh. And I am doing the white and the green deco mesh. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to place one on top of the other. I'm going to grab my rotary cutter and cut at that 30-inch mark. And I'm going to continue doing those cuts at the 30 inches until I use up the whole roll. So I'm using 1 roll of white deco mesh, 1 roll of the green deco mesh, and each one is 10 inches by 10 yards. And I'm going to cut each color 12 pieces, cut at that 30-inch mark. So these are our cuts to create our cruffle method, and that's the method we're going to use today, wreath. And to create our cruffle, I'm just going to get a clothespin and a little bit of a weight along with my newly cut deco mesh. It has a natural curl, so I want the natural curl to face up. I'm going to put down my weight right at the end just so it doesn't curl on me. We have a cut edge at the bottom and a manufactured edge on the left and the right hand side. All we're going to do to start our cruffle is we're going to curl that bottom edge, so the cut edge, and we're going to make a little tube out of it, or I like to say cannoli, and I like to roll it 3 or 4 times. Grab that clothespin, close it off, and then we're going to rotate it 180 degrees, and we're going to work on the other end, creating that cruffle. So again, we're creating a little curl right now. We're going to roll it about 2 or 3 times, maybe even 4 times if you want. And now what we're going to do is we're going to anchor those thumbs down, and we're going to let those fingers do the walking. So with our fingers, we're going to gather all that deco mesh, and at this point, you're creating your ruffle. So basically this is a curl and a ruffle bundle that we're creating, which is the cruffle method. Once you have that, you can see we have our ruffles right in the center and our little curls or loops right at the end. And then we're going to open up our first pipe cleaner stem, grab that bundle, and we're going to place that right in between those 2 stems. And then you're just going to pull it a little bit tightly and then wrap it around a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secure. Fluff it up just a little bit, and we have our first cruffle bundle all attached to our wreath. I'm using 2 different colors, so now I'm going to work on the green. Again, we're rolling up the bottom a couple of times. We're placing our we're placing the clothespin on there. Then we're going to work on the other side. Roll that up a couple of times. Place those thumbs down like an anchor, and then let those fingers do the walking. We're going to create that ruffle right in the center, and now our cruffle bundle is all done. We're going to go to the next available pipe cleaner stem on our wreath frame, and we're going to twist that a couple of times, fluff it up, and then I'm just going to follow the same method over and over again. For my wreath, I'm using white and green, so I'm alternating between those 2 colors, creating those ruffles, attaching them in those pipe cleaner stems, and I'm just going to roll and ruffle and roll and ruffle to my heart's content until I fill that whole outside. So here's the outside layer all done. Now it's time to work on the inside, and I do the exact same method. So you're rolling, you're ruffling, you're gathering it all together, and then now we're going to place it into the inside stem, and we're going to be working on our inside now. Now, I work from the outside in. If you want to work from the inside out, you totally can do that. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. I've done the outside in for years. It's just how I operate, but if you would prefer to work on the inside out, some people say it's a lot easier than working the outside in, but I like to work the outside in. But again, your choice, your wreath. Here it is all done. We have our base wreath already in the cruffle method. I'm just going to fluff it up a little bit. And I love how full this method is. Just look at how full this base wreath is already. And we haven't even put anything on it. I'm in love with it. Now I'm going to do a bow. So I'm just laying out my 2.5-inch wired ribbon, and at the 14-inch mark, I'm going to gather it together, and then with my left hand, with my 2 fingers, I'm just going to place that in between. So I'm going to hold everything in that left hand. Then I'm going to measure out 14 inches. We're creating a loop, bringing it back to my left hand. I'm going to transfer it there, and now we've just created our first loop. We're going to twist it so the good side faces up. You always want that good side facing up. We're going to measure out that 14 inches again, creating another loop, and then we're going to bring that right back to our left hand where we're gathering all of our loops and tails. I'm going to continue on measuring out and making those loops at the 14 inches. For this bundle, I'm going to do 4 loops and 2 tails. So once we get to the second tail, I'm cutting it, adding a full-length pipe cleaner right in the middle, twisting it a couple of times to make sure it's nice and secured. Going to fold over the ends of the ribbon, cut on an angle for our dovetails, and that is our first segment all done. I'm going to continue on to my next 2.5-inch wired ribbon, and this time my measurements are 12 inches. So I'm doing the exact same procedure we just did. We're going to measure out that 12 inches, cut for the tail, measure out 12 inches, bring it towards the left hand to create 4 loops. Then we're going to create 1 tail. We're going to cut at the end, grab a pipe cleaner stem, wrap it around the middle, making sure you got all that ribbon included, twist it a couple of times, and then dovetail the end, and our second segment is all complete. For the third segment, I am going to be using the 10-inch mark, so 10-inch tails, 10-inch loops, and for this one, I'm only creating 3 loops at that 10-inch mark, and then once we hit that 10-inch mark again, cut it for the tail, add that pipe cleaner right in the center, twist it around, and then of course we're going to finish off those tail ends with a nice dovetail, just cutting on an angle. And now our final segment is at the 8-inch mark. So we're doing a tail at 8 inches, then we're going to do our loops at the 8-inch mark, and then we're going to create 4 loops and 2 tails, finishing off with a cut, pipe cleaner, twisting it all around, and of course dovetailing the ends of those ribbons. Once we have all of our segments done, I'm going to bring them back on my table. And this is the first segment, so this is the largest, which is going to be at the bottom, and then we're going to work our way up in size. All I'm doing is I'm taking the next segment, wrapping the pipe cleaner around the center, twist tying it a couple of times, making sure it's nice and secure, and then I move on to my next segment. I'm going to fluff it up and arrange it just a little bit because it's pretty much crushed at this point. And then I'm going to twist tie that all around, get that attached, and then I'm going to attach my last segment on there as well. And now it's time to fluff up the bow that we have all of our segments all together. Of course, I can't stop fluffing. I really have to say to myself, stop it, Dave, stop it. But here is our bow for our wreath all completed. Next, I'm going to do some more cuts, and I'm going to cut this time at the 12-inch mark. So these are the ribbons that I'm going to be used to attach to the pipe cleaner stems on my wreath. So I have the green striped, the black and white striped, I have this geometric Christmas tree, and of course this crazy polka dot one that I'm all cutting at 12 inches. So the 2.5-inch wired ribbon, I'm cutting 12 pieces each at 12 inches, and the 1.5 inches, I'm only cutting 6 pieces each at the 12 inches. Once I put them into the wire wreath frame, I'm going to alternate. So we're going to dovetail, and how you dovetail is you just fold your ribbon in half and then cut on an angle, and that's going to create a little V shape or a dovetail right at the end of your ribbon. I'm going to take all of that ribbon I just cut and I'm going to dovetail both ends. Now we're going to attach it to our base wreath. I'm crisscrossing the 2.5-inch ribbon. I'm going to grab 1.5-inch wire ribbon, fold it over to find the center, gather it all together. Then I'm just going to push it down a little bit so it stands up. open up my first available pipe cleaner stem, and I'm just going to add that right in there, right at the center, twist it a couple of times, and we have our first ribbon attachment on our base wreath. I'm going to do alternating, so the next available I'm going to skip, and then the next available one, I'm going to do my ribbon attachment. So again, I'm gathering 2 of the 2.5 inch wire, 1 of the 1.5 inch, gathering it together in the middle and placing that right in between those 2 pipe cleaner stems. And we're going to twist that around, making sure it's nice and secure. You don't have to fluff it up too much at this point. I usually fluff everything up right at the end. So again, remember, we're going to skip one, and then I'm going to add to the next available one. And I'm just going to gather my ribbon together, create that bundle, and place it right in there. So I'm doing the outside and the inside, and here is all of our ribbon all attached. Once we have all of our ribbon attached, I'm just going to cut off those excess pipe cleaner stems. We don't need them anymore. Sometimes I have to dig for them because they're right in there, but I'm going to cut all of those off at this point. And the next step is completely optional. You don't have to do it. I like to do this for all of my wreaths. Is I go in with my hot glue gun and I just place a little hot glue right on all those pipe cleaner stems we just cut. And now the beautiful part, here it is in all of its glory already. I am loving it. But of course, now we're going to add everything on there. For the wood sign, I just glued some pipe cleaners on the back. And then I'm just going to feed those pipe cleaners right to the back. You just flip the wreath over, and then you can twist tie on that wire frame right at the back a couple of times. And then you just make sure that that sign is nice and even, how you want it to be placed. I'm going to have mine on a little bit of an angle, so it may look off at first. And then we're going to attach our elf hat and ears. The wreath attachment comes with these little wires already attached, which is perfect. So all I'm going to do is figure out where I want to place it, and then I'm going to feed that wire right to the back. And just like we hung our sign, I'm just going to attach it there. But before I do a full attachment or a couple of twists, I'm only going to twist it one time, and then I'm going to check to see how I like it. And it's a little bit off for me, so I'm going to change that. So I'm just going to untwist it, move it over to the next wire section, and then I'm going to really twist that in place once I'm happy with it. You can see here I'm kind of looking at it, making sure it's good. And now I'm going to do a couple of full twists, making sure it's there, and then cut off the excess. Now we're going to add that big beautiful bow, right the same method we did with everything else. Feed those pipe cleaners right through the back. Once you've got it twisted on there, I'm going to fluff it up a little bit because it is getting really, really squished. And then I'm going to work on my legs. So again, these legs have wires attached already. I'm going to feed it through the back, twist it around a couple of times, make sure it's nice and secured. And I wanted to bend the legs a little bit. Unfortunately, this wreath is so big, it really didn't catch on camera, but I did end up crossing the legs and gluing the legs together a little bit right at the feet, and a little bit of glue right underneath the sign. So here you can see it all done. We have our elf on there, we have our bow on there, and our big beautiful, don't get your tinsel in a tangle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to finish adding everything on. So my candy canes, my Christmas ornaments, I'm just using hot glue for all of this. I've added that mailbox sign on there, and here is our final result. Like I said, this wreath is so big, it doesn't fit on my craft table. You can see my dirty floors. Don't look at my dirty floors. But here is the elf in all of its glory, and I have to say, yes, it is full. Yes, it is busy. Yes, there is a lot going on here, but you know what? Here it is on my door, and I am just beaming from ear to ear. I love it so much. I know for the last episode of my Wreathmas week, I wanted to go big or go home, and this definitely was big, and I'm just so excited for it. And here it is on my front door. I could not wait to get it out there, so it's hanging up there right now. A big beautiful cruffle wreath with that huge elf wreath attachment, our little mailbox, that big bow. Just absolutely love this, and I hope you do as well.